Oh, I want to touch on something else you said. You said, quote, the gun buyback programs have been successful. Quote, this is your words, homicide rate in Australia decreased because of that. They didn't suffer any more mass shootings. Do you still stand by that quote?
In Australia, I believe that's true, yeah.
So if we go to Australia and we look at the period prior to the gun buyback program, you can see there was virtually 0 mass shootings that have happened. During this time, there was 4, and then after that time, there was none. So if we look at Australia, we look at the homicide rate of Australia per 100,000, you can see that in red here, this is America, this is according to the AIC, their government statistics in Australia, and America's homicide rate in red, Australia's homicide rate in blue. And since the 1996 gun buyback program from 1996 to 2001, their homicide rate per 100,000 remained virtually the same. As a matter of fact, it went from 1.6 to 1.8 in a 6-year period, whereas our homicide rate here in America with no gun amnesty, no gun buyback program, decreased from 7.4 per 100,000 to 5.5 per 100,000. So we had a larger homicide per 100,000 rate decrease in America than they did in Australia with their gun buyback program. So I don't believe that it was actually successful. Not to mention, after the Port Arthur massacre in Australia, Australia now has more legally owned guns in Australia than they did before the 1996 Port Arthur massacre. So I don't believe that those two things are relatable. I think that there were no mass shootings in Australia before. There was 2, and then they had this gun buyback program, which wasn't targeted at all guns, by the way. It was only certain types of weapons there. And they went back to the same level that they had of mass shootings than they did before. And the guy who committed the mass shooting, by the way, was a deranged lunatic, I believe they said, and they reported on this.
Before we move back, I'm curious, did you create that graph, or did somebody create it for you?
This is, I created this based on the AIC statistics, crime stats, aic.gov. You can go to that link.